Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء ولكن لا أشعرون. صلوات. That I began with, which was also recited by our sisters, that speak not of those who are slain in the way of Allah is dead, nay, they are alive, but you perceive not. Tonight is that night where those who are to be slain on the day of Ashur were alive. They were discussing, they were discussing their war plans. They were also discussing what was to happen the following day. And it is said that they were also doing the zikr, they were reciting the Quran, so much so that from the tents of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, there was that buzzing sound coming out as if it was the buzzing of the bees. And some conversations take place. Amongst that was one that Janabe Qasim asked his uncle, that will I also be killed? And we know the response was that not only you, Qasim, but Ali Asghar will also give his shahadat. Tonight we remember that shahadat. But the most important point that was made by Janabe Qasim, which encompassed the entire spirit of that evening, to say, Qasim, oh my son, how do you find death? And he said, I find death sweeter than honey. These poignant words are sufficient for us to pay tribute and to cry in Karbala. We do not need tahrif. We do not need the addition of spice, which are falsehoods attached to Karbala. And many of our rituals and many of our traditions need to be looked at very carefully. Alhamdulillah, we had a good session this afternoon when we were trying to dissect the traditions that hinder us, the traditions that help us. A society, a community continues to move. What was a second, a minute or a second ago, that second is never going to come. There is a constant change, and there either we adopt change, we cannot bury our heads in the sand. If not, we will be overtaken by change. Indeed, it is better, as I've said before, that we actually become agents of change, which is what Karbala was. Karbala changed the dynamics in a society, just as the Blessed Prophet did. Karbala changed. I have an apology to make. Tonight would have been that night where we could have concluded and summarized the past lectures that we have done. Unfortunately, I have not been able to finish the last and the most important topic of transformation. So let me begin without further ado. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَلَا تُخْرِجْنِي يَوْمَ يَبْعَثُونَ يَوْمَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Translated, and disgrace me not on the day when they are raised, in the day on which property will not avail nor sons, except who comes to Allah with a heart free from evil. The operative phrase here tonight, and this is a transformative phrase that we talk about, is Qalbe Saleem. We've heard about Qalbe Saleem in the past. It recounts, I would like to go deeper, because this is the surah of Surah Al-Shu'ara. The ayahs were 87 to 89. And to encompass the message of this ayah, that on the day of judgment, the whole of mankind will be in a loss. The Quran says, except he who brings to Allah Qalbe Saleem, a sound heart. So that really is the bottom line in terms of transformation that we've been talking about these past few nights. That how does one move towards that state of Qalbe Saleem? The Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that surely in the body there's a small piece of flesh. If it is good, the whole body is good. And if it is corrupted, the whole body is corrupted. And that surely is the heart. We're talking about Qalbe Saleem. Qalb is that heart, that pure heart. And allow me to also quote Imam Jafar as-Sadiq al-Islam, where he says, Qalbe Saleem is that heart which meets Allah in a state where it has only Allah and nothing else. Pure Tawheed, to say this is the heart. And we'll go on to give a commentary of what Imam Sadiq said. But Quranic terms become very important. When you understand certain phrases, you start understanding the culture. You also start understanding where a people are coming from. In the days of the old Soviet Union, the minute somebody opened that mouth and says proletariat and so on and so forth, bourgeoisie and proletariat, we understood where they were coming from or what mindset they had. In the same way, when Muslims talk about hijrah, Muslims talk about various words, rahmah, we immediately understand. And it's important that we try and develop, if not learning the Arabic language, at least try and develop Quranic vocabulary, so when we talk amongst ourselves, that we are able to talk and put in the Quranic words, which immediately gives us the connection with each other. This is the meaning of Islamicizing the English language. We are very adept at mixing languages. Sometimes we will have 3 languages in one sentence. And tonight is not a night for jesting. I will not repeat that. You all understand where I'm coming from. But we are adept at that. Why do we not incorporate Arabic and Quranic terms in when we speak, when we communicate? So here, the word used for heart, there are 3 words which I use: Qalb, Fuad, and Sadr. Quran talks about the heart in 3 different words, and the translation of those is in order because they are mostly translated in the English language as heart. But each word has a very specific meaning. You know, when we talk about the qalb is that heart which pivots around the Creator. This is that heart. When we talk about the qalb, it connects the human being in the seen with the unseen, and it augments our aql. That is a true depth of what we have. But you know, the Quran also has another name for heart. It is fuad. Comes from fada. It means there is a burning flame. And I'll go into it. But the word fuad also is very characteristic of our innermost traits. Yesterday we talked about the various faculties, the quwaya akaliya, the quwaya ghazabiyya, quwaya shahawiyya. When we talk, and quwaya wahamiyya, when we talk about that, there are certain feelings that we have within us. In fact, you know, when you have a meat on fire, roasted meat, in Arabic we call it lahmun faid. That this is something that is burning on or almost on a flame. And this word is used by the Quran when the heart is inflamed with emotion. And when we get emotional, it is this part, or this is the word used. When we say in the heat of the moment, even in English we use this term, in the heat of the moment, that you are engrossed in emotion, be it happiness, be it sadness, be it frustration, whatever it may be, it is that part. So that's fuad. And then lastly, Quran also uses the term sadr, meaning chest. It really is a chest, a treasure chest, in which something is hidden or is boxed up. So when we talk about the heart as a sadr, when the Quran talks about it, it's talking about something that has been put in a box, so the qalb is inside that box. And in fact, we use this to say one who whispers in the hearts of mankind. Here the understanding is, and Quran is beautiful when we try and understand that this is who actually whispers, who gives you that waswas. It is none other than Mr. Shaitan. And Allah allows Shaitan to go only up to sadr, only up to the chest. This is the Quranic terminology. Because the heart is a fort, and the eyes, the tongues, our hearing, our hands are gauged to that opening of sadr. And what happens is that Shaitan is only able to go up to that fort, up to sadr. Cannot go beyond until we open the doors. So there is already an inbuilt protection. And when we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani la'ini rajim, the isti'adha that we do is indeed following this to say, Shaitan is knocking on sadr, is knocking on the chest. But Allah did not give Shaitan access to our qalb or, the other parts of our heart except for the outer chest. So it is up to us whether we open or we do not. Now, a small lesson in anatomy. It's not a scientific class, but did you know that the heart was there in existence before the brain? What this is leading to is who has precedence in terms of age. So, our heart is older than our brain. It's created before the brain and it starts to pulse from its first day till death. This is the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam alayhi salam said that if you want to imagine creation, look within yourself, there's a whole universe in you. This is the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, when we talk about the idea of, it says, heart to heart, these are very emotive words to say, somebody steals hearts, somebody wins the heart, somebody breaks somebody's heart, somebody is learning something by heart. Have your heart in your mouth, or to your heart's content. Would you really be able to say any of this for your brain to say, stealing my brain, or winning my brain? The heart has precedence, but how much do we really know about our heart and how it works? This blessing that we have. When you have good news, do we experience that with our brains or with our hearts? When you hear some bad news, do we feel pain with our brain or do we feel pain in our heart? When you love somebody, does one love somebody with their brains or with their heart? And when betrayed, to say they've broken my heart, he or she has broken my heart, not broken my brain. So, what it does is it beats 100,000 times a day, but 35 million times in a year. The average lifetime of the human heart, it will beat more than 2.5 billion times. Subhanallah, this is that small muscle that continues to beat. In under a minute, it pumps to every cell in your body. Over the course of day, 100,000 heartbeats will shuttle 2,000 gallons of oxygen-rich blood. When we wonder at the creation and we wonder as to what we have within us, the miracle, And how hard does it work? Just to give us an appreciation of what Allah has given us. Give a tennis ball a good hard squeeze, try doing that. You're using about the same amount of force your heart has to use to pump the blood into your body. So, scientists have now come to understand that there is more to the heart than mere pump. The heart apparently has a memory. And when there have been heart transplants, and this is out there in scientific literature, I have all the references in case any of the medics want to test me out, that when heart transplants were done, they develop affinity to the grandchildren of the person whose heart actually had been used. It's coming back to what the Aimma alayhimus salam have said about our hearts. Imam Baqir al-Islam said that there are 4 kinds of hearts that we have within us, 4 types of hearts. One is a heart that has both faith and hypocrisy in it. The other one is a heart which is inverted and upside down. Then there is a heart that has been sealed and darkened. And the 4th one is a heart that is clear and luminous. Within the humans, this is what we develop. So the first one is one which has got both hypocrisy and faith, and this is a diseased heart. We talk about transformation. So the idea is, if you have a diseased heart, how do you go about cleaning that up? It's neither fully healthy nor completely dead, but there are signs of hardness in that heart. It keeps committing more sins without repenting. The dark spots on the heart increase, and one day they will cover the entire heart. But if you address it, if you arrest it in time, then you stop that, it reverses. And Maulana Rum talks about this, I quoted this, that when you have a small bramble bush, you can pluck it out. If you allow it to grow, it will stop your passage. And one day it will grow so high that you won't even be able to go through it. He compares that with a small sin. If they keep on adding and adding, it's like a bramble bush that one day you will not be able to come back. Transformation has to begin as soon as we have found out that there are these spots, and none of are masoom. This is an exercise that we do. Then Imam says there's an inverted heart which is upside down. It perceives things which are inverted. When a heart sees the world as more important than the hereafter, it has got his picture upside down. It craves and strives more for this world than worry and prepare about the hereafter. So this is the inverted heart that Imam is talking about. This is a heart of a hypocrite believer who outwardly claims to accept the truth but inwardly denies it, or has petty gains of this life in mind as he pretends to be a good person. The other one is a fasik, that following some of his commands and leaving the others to fulfill his heart's desires. It's selective faith. I will do X because it's easier to do, but I will not do Y. Where this is an upside down heart. Then you've got the third one, which is a sealed and a darkened heart, which has rejected the truth after it has reached it. Is incapable of benefiting from the remembrance of Allah and accepting the call towards His message. And fourthly, Imam describes the heart which is luminous. This is a heart which is healthy. It is a soft heart of a pious believer. It is a light that radiates from it, is a light of faith. It shines through the righteous actions of the body. It is a heart, Imam says, that is the likeness of a lamp, the heart that is clear and luminous. It is that heart which is thankful when God gives him something and patient when he does not. And this is the journey that we need to make. And, when Hadith Qudsi says that the heavens and the earth cannot contain me, but the heart of a mu'min can hold me. This is the luminous heart. And therefore we must keep it clean. So Imam Sadiq al-Islam says, as I began with, that Qalbe Saleem is that heart which meets Allah in a state where it only has Allah and nothing else. So the question we ask ourselves is, how satisfied and contented are we? There was a mouse who was afraid of a cat. So the magician turns him into a cat. Well, now he's afraid of the dog. So now the magician turns him into a dog. And then now he's afraid of the panther. And now the magician says, I have no hope for you. I'll turn you back into a mouse because whatever I do to you, you're not satisfied with, you're still afraid of it. Do we have heart of a mouse? Whatever Allah gives us, we are not satisfied. We want more and more. Our broken trust in Allah seems unlikely to be mended until we start becoming happy, contented with what Allah has given us. He has given us so much. The idea of that attitude of gratitude. The attitude of gratitude can be learned from a camel. A camel feeds on a bramble bush, on thorns. But do you know that the milk that a camel gives is the most plentiful, both in quality and in quantity? It has more nutrients than any other kind of milk. And the cow feeds, or the camel feeds on something so little, and yet gives so much. This is gratitude, that you take little and you give so much more. That is the attitude of gratitude that we have. So now we talked about the idea of the hearts and minds. The general thing is you try and win hearts and minds of the world by various framing of messages. But there is always a conflict within the human being. This is the transformation that we are talking about. That there is conflict within. What we want to do is something our heart tells us to do. And what we feel is practical is what our brain or our mind is going to tell us. And there is always that conflict between the two. The illness of indecision, or the analysis paralysis as we call it, that we have mistaken the purpose of the heart and the mind. We compare our mind to the heart in a courtroom. The mind is a defendant or the plaintiff, always arguing, do this, don't do this. I want to give something away. The heart tells you, I see a poor person in front of me, let's help him. The mind says, but I only have $100 in my pocket and I'm going to need that. So the brain is telling you not to do it, the heart is telling you to do it. Have you ever felt that within us, that we have this indecision? So I'll move on from that because there's little time and we have a lot to say. But the heart says, I wish we could do this. And reason and the brain says, I know that I cannot. I want to follow. My heart says, after Murtaza, I made this appeal here, that I want to help. But my brain says, I'm not going to have the time to do it. It's that conflict always that we have. Reason will say, I only have this much food. The heart wants to share it with the hungry. So this is where the heart will allow us to actually soar. I'm talking about transformation that we talked about yesterday. It is not a matter of changing something, it's a matter of transformation. A transformation is a place that you're not going to come back to where you were. It is your heart. It is your emotion. Many a times it is going to carry you there, because the battle between the mind and the heart will always keep you in a state of balance. That also is a good thing, because Quwa Aqaliya is one where you balance. That if you always follow your heart, you may be in trouble, because then you'll give everything away, you may not know. Aql is the one that's going to balance it, but generally the contest is between the heart and the brain, as it were. Salawat. And we don't know the value of that heart. An old lady somehow comes across a royal falcon in her garden. And she had never seen a falcon before. And what she does is that she cuts all the talons and the huge wings, because it didn't look like the chicken that she had. She wanted to make it look like the chicken. And she cut it off. Mullah Rumi says that that is how we behave when we act just on reason. That we just cut everything off and everything is very practical and seems very reasonable. The beauty of mankind, the beauty of a picture, the beauty of the creation, admiring the sunset, the spirituality that dwells within us does not come from the brain, it comes from the heart. And I've said this before, and to remind us that when you have that one single tear that comes out for Shuhada Karbala, that you cry upon Ali Asghar, one tear, if it is a tear of sincerity, it gives us that flight, the spiritual flight of our heart with the spirituality of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Can we be loftier than that? And this truly is a basis of that spirituality. So, transformation that we have talked about in the last two lectures, and this is the culmination of it, is that transformation can only happen when there is that transformation within the heart. If we do not change our inner world, meaning our heart and what we feel inside, nothing will change in the outer world. There is a universe that exists within us, and that universe has got to be balanced before we expect any kind of transformation in the outer world. Changing your job, geographic location, new friends, getting plastic surgery, more money, whatever that you do is not going to change, it's not going to bring you transformation. It may give you some, optical illusion of some change. There is no lasting change. It will not heal you or make you whole again unless and until you're healed from within. And therefore, Mu'mineen, transformation, and this is heavy stuff, it is not light, but it is the right of this podium that we provoke thought, so that when we go, we reflect upon this, that there is one step, like we said yesterday, take one of the Asma'ul Husna. Adopt that akhlaq within you, one Asma'ul Husna a month, one Asma'ul Husna a year, and you will see the transformation coming through. What is needed is positive internal dialogue within us. Looking at the rose tree, seeing the rose and not the thorns is the right dialogue to have. It's a positive dialogue. The pessimist, according to Khalil Gibran, that he stares at the thorns of the rose, that the rose doesn't exist. The positive dialogue is, I can do it. Allah has given me the ability to do it. And Allah does not place any burden upon anyone except that He knows that he or she is going to be able to bear it. And this is the basis of transformation. Therefore, one way of transformation and the path towards transformation is to check our blessings. We thought about the heart. Did you imagine that the heart is doing so much? That one little piece of flesh in our body, and if that stops, everything else stops. That's the blessing of health. The blessed Prophet said, remember, do not neglect two things before you lose them. Time and good health. Time once gone is gone. You have this bank where if somebody were to credit $86,400 every day, at night that bank would wash off that balance. What would you do with that balance? You would invest every penny of it, spend every penny of it, because the following morning that bank will always have $86,400 in the morning. And by midnight it will be washed off if you don't use it or if you waste it. Well, we do have such a bank. It's called the time bank. Every morning Allah gives us 86,400 seconds in our account. And how we use it, it's up to us. The Blessed Prophet said, time and health are the two things. And when you're healthy, you're on the go, on the trot, doing everything that you can do. Every risk that needs to be taken, you will take. And then you have chest pains. And then you go to the cardiologist and he tells you take it easy. And suddenly I'm a born again human being. I go for walks. I do my exercise. I'm very careful about the diet and so on and so forth. Well, if I had been doing that consistently before, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody else here, so no aspersion is being cast. But the point is that after the first chest pain, or whatever other, Allah save us from all diseases, but anything you get the first sign, you suddenly become, with the born-again Christians, you have the fish sign. I wonder what sign we put on our car to say, I'm a born-again human being. Time and good health is what the Blessed Prophet said you must be thankful for. And lastly, we need peace, inner peace. Indeed, the entire humanity needs that today. The strife that we have today is from all quarters. It comes from one satanic idea, which is the origin of it. You look at and analyze any problem that you see within a family, within a nation, within the world. What you see is the minute you say that I am better than him, I am better than her, once I have that in my mind, conflicts begin. So the idea is if we have that level of itminan, that contentment of whoever I am, I know who I am, I know what my capabilities are, and I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having given me. Imam Ali alayhi salam said that obey Allah to the degree that you need Him, and disobey Allah to the degree that you have the strength to bear the fire of Jahannam. Two things. Now, when he says, obey Allah to the degree that you need Him, mu'mineen, for every breath that I take, every time that piece of flesh is pumping oxygen into my body, for every breath I take, I need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me the ability to have that heart pumping. So what should my level of obedience be to Him? And 3 days ago, it was like 75 or 80 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what is it in centigrade. And here in Toronto, and we're complaining it's very hot. The fire of Jahannam, I leave it to your imagination, salawat. So that journey of transformation actually needs to move. The dimension of itminan, reaching that contentment through that Qalbe Saleem, because ultimately it is that Qalbe Saleem that we have to present on the Day of Judgment. How do we get there? This is the journey of the nafs. You begin with the animalistic self. The two kuwas, kuwa akaliya, kuwa ghazabiyya, and kuwa shahawiyya are part of what we call your nafs ammara. It is your animalistic self which takes you in a direction which needs to be controlled. And Allah has blessed us with another nafs within us, which is called nafs al-lawama. It is a self-blaming soul. I do something wrong, before anybody else calls me out on it, I will call out myself, the judge within me, to say you have cheated. The judge within me will say you have been unfair, you have been unjust. We become very adept at couching it in the right terms, and we become our own lawyers and the best advocates when we are trying to defend ourselves. But internally, the nafs al-lawama will tell you that you have done something wrong. So through the help of nafs al-lawama, if we are able to control that nafs ammara, the animalistic self of kuwa ghazabiyya and kuwa shahawiyya, the power of possession and the power of desire and the power of anger, then there is a chance that we will move on to that nafs which is called nafs mutmainna. And that is the minimum station that one needs to reach in our journey of life, through which we come through and say that this is a contented soul. And that truly is the concept of Qalbe Saleem that we are talking about. It is that heart which is at peace now. It takes some time, it takes effort to try and bring about The Qalbe Saleem, as we are talking about. So now, let us do some heart detox. Since we are on this phase of detoxing ourselves, Qalbe Saleem can only be reached when you have a detox. And the practitioner for that detox is none other than Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi salam salawat. A man comes to Imam and says that I am your Shia. And Imam says, my friend, never claim to be one of our Shias, lest Allah on the day of judgment raise you as a liar. Very strong words. And Imam then explains, and this is a detox. Imam says, no one can be our Shia except for a person whose heart is free of deceit, whose heart is free of malice, whose heart is free of hatred towards others, and whose heart is free of corruption. This is a detox. Qalbe Saleem can only come if you detox that heart, remove these impurities in us. And he said, if you are not such a person, Imam says, then you can claim to be our admirer or our supporter, but never our Shia. We have been given the definition. So the last lecture was going to be on the basis of, are we in the camp of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? And it was going to be a summary. Time is not permitting me to go through it. But the subject of transformation has been brought to its culmination to say it all depends upon me. Outside, I cannot whine to say the society is doing something for me, or is not doing, therefore I can't do X, Y, Z. Transformation can come from within, by myself, with myself, for myself. Any outside person trying to do something, it is not transformation. It may be change. Somebody can change you. Somebody can try and change you. But when it comes to transformation, there is no outside force that can do it. And many a times we rest on our laurels. Well, the society was such, I couldn't do it. Or I was raised in a family, we couldn't really do it. That's not going to cut it on the day of judgment. Allah will say, I gave you all the faculties. I gave you all the ni'mah. I gave you all the blessings. And then you blame somebody else. There's a beautiful Urdu couplet which says, Hasi aati hai hame Hazrat insan par, faile bad khud kare, lanat kare shaitan par. I continue to pass the buck over to someone else for my lack of transformation is not going to cut it. So, are we in the camp of Hussain is a question that we ask on this final night of Azhar. And this is a night that we grieve. This is a night when we do matam. So whoever is with Hussain, and the idea of the transformation is free of deceit on a personal level, is free of malice, is free of hatred towards others, and free of corruption, as we have been advised by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. At a societal level, we have talked about multicultural society. We've talked about our responsibility in a society, and to actually bring this to add, to say at a societal level, just as Imam Hussain says, Mithli la yubayihu mithlahu, that a person like me cannot do bay'ah of a person like him. It wasn't that I will not do bay'ah of Yazid. It was a person like me cannot do bay'ah of a person like him. The idea is that I cannot pledge allegiance to an oppressor, and will always be on the side of the seekers of truth. So as we conclude this series, and you have been a tremendous audience, I appreciate and I thank you for it. We say that moving with Hussain is do not move with Hussain only in history. Yes, history is important. You need to look back. As Kakad said, that life must be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. So do not move with Hussein in history, move with him in reality, in revolution, in change, and in transformation. And if that is what Karbala does for us, then truly these days that we have come here with the purest of intention to give condolences to Bibi Fatima Zahra Salamullahi alayha is something that is going to be also beneficial to us. Every tear that we shed has value, tremendous value. Do we intend to make a commitment to Imam Hussein's objectives as we end this series? Do we wish to continue, or do we wish to continue the complacency in our current state, paying what can best be described as lip service to his martyrdom and demonstrative of mourning only for Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Is this more than tears that we talk about? The biggest question that I leave you with, and let us ask that question on the 1st of Muharram next year. Am I a better person when I begin the next Ashra, the first Ashra of Muharram? Have I become a better human being during that year? If I have, then transformation has taken place. If I have, then I have benefited. If I haven't, I continue to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do those deeds so that I have that level of transformation. As famous Najm Afandi says, Haqiqat abadi hai maqam shabbiri, badalte rehte hain andaze kufi o shami. The only thing that is constant is Husainiyat. The only thing that is constant is the principle of Shaheed Karbala. Otherwise, like the Kufis, things are very relative. There's more relative morality that prevails in this world. One day something is morally good, the other day it changes. There needs to be absolute morality. So, being in the camp of Hussein, to conclude all these things that we have said, and if you look back at the lectures, inshallah these will be put on YouTube as soon as we've had some production done. Moral consistency. Being in the camp of Hussein means you're morally consistent. There is no relative morality. The courage to stand up against oppressors, compassion and empathy. Qalbe Saleem that we have talked about today, and I'll just quickly go over moral consistency, is being clear, being honest, being authentic. The idea of integrity is that you do not signal left and then you turn right. That is not integrity. It is being honest and authentic. Who you are, especially today. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. That we have created you a nation most balanced, Allah tells us, so that you may be an example upon mankind. Who you are speaks far more loudly than anything you could say. You could post 100 Twitter messages. You could post 100 Facebook messages to say, we the Shias are XYZ. But unless I have shown that to my colleague at work or my neighbor who is out there, unless I have shown those true values, no one's going to believe me. The idea is that we need to walk the walk and we need to walk the talk, both. To be aligned with our core values, to be consistent in our thought, in our word, and in our deed. And that truly is, once you begin with that level of moral consistency, the balance that you have, inshallah we pray that the rest will take care of itself. Let us adopt one of the Asma'ul Husna to give us that moral consistency. If we take a promise from each of us and give a promise to us that, Ya Allah, I will take one of the Asma'ul Husna, whatever it is, pick your best one, or open it up and just pick one at random and say, this is going to be my raison d'etre for living for the next 30 days, 60 days, whatever, and I'm going to try and adopt that. We can see what can happen. So, finally, to quote Maulana Rum, he said, after our death, Do not search for us in the tombs and the graveyards of the world, but search for us in the hearts of the people that we have inspired. So powerful. If we can lead that life, if we build that legacy by adding deep value to every encounter, everyone that we deal with, and we leave this world a better place and we found it, then truly we have succeeded, because hukukullah has its place, the rights of Allah upon us has its place. At the same time, equally important and sometimes more important is hukukul ibad, the rights of the creatures of Allah upon us. So if I have done something that I can leave a legacy where the world was a slightly better place than when I found it, then I have been indeed successful. Salawat.